Good morning, this is your Math Sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is going to be a lesson on solving for y and the y-intercepts given any equation. But first off, we're going to begin with a warm-up on point slope form. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m, which is our slope, and x minus x1. Please note that that y1 and the x1 make up our ordered pair, and this will be our starting point. All right, so that x1 and that y1 will be our starting point. However, it's a little bit tricky in that when we take it out of the equation and put it into we have to switch our signs, and vice versa. When we go from here into the equation, we switch our signs. But that x1 and y1 gives us our starting points. So I have a mistake on this, so we need to scratch that out. And we're going to have given the points -6, 2, and 3, -4. Write the equation of point slope form and graph on the coordinate plane. Well, this is the first one, so this will be x1 and y1, and this will be x2 and y2. It really doesn't matter how you label them, but as long as you make sure the ones go together and the twos go together. Well, if that's x1 and y1, then we know we have our starting point, and our starting point is -6, 2. All right, so we have a starting point. The next thing we need to do is we need to find our slope. Well, our slope formula, this is what's generally used, but I prefer to use y1 minus y2. They'll both give you the same answer. I just like to do first, first, second, second. I think it eliminates errors, but that's up to you and your teacher. Either one is acceptable. Now, I always come back and do this with parentheses, and I beg you to do so. Whether you're working with Desmos or the calculator, it decreases the number of errors. Remember, the y's are on top, so this 2 will be directly over this -6. And over here, we'll have -4 directly over the 3. Okay, we're going to go ahead and switch over to Desmos, or we're about to. At least I say we are. Hopefully that'll work out. Share. Okay, so in Desmos, I'm going to go ahead and drop the parentheses in, and that's my y parentheses, and this will be my x parentheses. So on my y, I had 2, and then I had a -4, and on the x's, I had -6 and a 3. So I end up getting 6 over -9. So let's put that in there. 6 slash -9, and I get this ugly decimal. But if I press over where the circle is, it'll can reduce it to -2/3. So my slope is -6/9 reduces to -2/3. And we'll want to use the reduced version of that. So we're going to go ahead and hit the stop, go back to our paper. And there we go. There's my slope equal -6/9 reduced to -2/3. So we know what m is. So m is -2/3. Now we want this in y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Well, that means we have y minus 2. Because remember, we're going to swap the sign. This is a +2, so now it becomes a -2. Equals -2/3 x. And here we have a -6, so we have to swap the sign and write a +6. Okay? All right, next thing it asks us to do is graph it to the coordinate plane to the right. Well, if I graph that -6, 2, that's my starting point, so I'm going to go ahead and do that in red. And we have a negative slope. Please remember, think of the angry man eyebrows. It's negative, so we need to be going down. So we're going to go down 2 and over 3. So down 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3. Down 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3. Down 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3. And we'll do one more. 1, 2 over 1, 2, 3. We could keep going, but that's good enough. And we'll go ahead and draw an approximately straight line. Handy dandy notepad. There we go. So that's our first one. The next thing says graph the equation y minus 7 equals negative 4 times x plus 1 and find the starting point in m. I would suggest we should find the starting point in m first. Let's start with the slope. Well, we know the slope is negative 4, but I need to write that as a fraction, so that'll be negative 4 over 1. So that's what I care about because that's the way I'm going to have to graph it. My starting point, remember this is y1 and this is x1. So I'm going to go ahead and write down those numbers. And it's always y before the x, so 1 and 7. However, these are liars, and we have to switch the signs on both sides. So this positive 1 becomes a negative 1, and this negative 7 becomes a positive 7. So now we have a starting point, and it's negative 1 over negative 1 for the x's and 7. So here's my starting point. And they call it the starting point because that's where you start. And then we have negative 4 over 1. So I'm going to count down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. Do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. And one last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. All right, connecting those dots. Something like this. All right, now we've gone over point slope form. So the next thing says solve for y using the opposite operations, and we're going to use this equation up here that we wrote above into the new equation and x equals 0 into Desmos. So let's go ahead and write this equation down. We're starting with y minus 2 equals negative 2/3 x plus 6. Now, there's a whole lot of simplifications going on, but we're just going to keep it really simple. We just want to get y by itself. So we're solving for y. That's what the goal is. So using opposite operation. So I need to move this 2, and to move this 2, I'm just going to add 2 to both sides. Well, this goes away, and now I have y equals negative 2/3 x plus 6 plus 2 on the outside. And I know that can be simplified farther and probably should be, but that's good enough for what we need. We already know our slope is negative 2/3, so that was easy. But we need our y-intercept, and this is where we're going to go to Desmos, and hopefully it'll help us out a bit, okay? So we're going to go switch over. And we said y equals negative 2 divided by 3, x, parenthesis, x plus 6. And then on the outside of those parentheses, we had a plus 2. So when we look at it, oh, we see that it crossed right here at 0, negative 2. It also asks us to find the zeros. So it says enter the new equation and x equals 0. So we need to plug in the x equals 0. And there we have a green line. I don't know if that shows up well, but we see x equals 0 and we have 0, negative 2. So our answer is our ordered pair, the y-intercept ordered pair is 0, negative 2. And I should have written that we needed to find x equals 0, and we'll always do that because the y-intercept is always 0, or the x will always be 0. But we got negative 2, so this is our y-intercept, 0, negative 2. Okay? And if we wanted to write this in slope-intercept form, which it didn't ask us to, we could go y equals negative 2/3 x minus 2. And I'm going to switch back over to Desmos one last time to show you that it's exactly the same equation. Okay, so if I type in y equals -2 divided by 3, x minus 2. And it traced right over the line. It just changed the colors of it. So we get exactly the same line. Okay, stop the share. All right, so now we're going to use this one up above, which was y minus 7 equals -4, parenthesis x plus 1. So I'm going to write that down. So y minus 7 equals -4 x plus 1. All right, so I just copied it down from above. Well, the goal is to get y by itself, solve for y. So to solve for y, I'm going to move the 7 by adding 7. This drops off and I get y equals -4 parenthesis x plus 1 plus 7. All right, well, we already know our slope. Our slope is -4. And we know we need to plug in, we're going to go to Desmos, we're going to plug in this equation, plus we're going to plug in x equals 0, because we're going to want our y-intercept. But we should already know this first value better be 0. Where it crosses the y-axis, we know that's going to be 0 every single time. So let's go plug those two equations in and see what happens. So we have y equals -4. Then we have x plus 1. And then we had to put a plus 7 on the end. And we end up getting our graph. And we see that they cross right here at 0, 3. So 0, 3 is my y-intercept. All right, so we have 0, 3 is my y-intercept. And then if I wanted to write it in y equals mx plus b form, I have everything to do that. I can go y equals -4x plus 3. And not, even though I didn't ask for it, that's in slope-intercept form, which is a lot easier to work with for some people, including myself. All right, continuing on. So it says solve. So we have the same thing. They've given us an equation, and it says for us to find the intersection. All right. So we have y plus 3. Well, the first thing I need to do is solve for y. I do that by moving 3. So I'm going to just put a -3 over here. This will go away, and I have y equals 6/5 x minus 5 parentheses -3. Well, we should be able to know what our slope is. We should see that our slope is 6/5. And we should know that our y-intercept is 0 followed by some number. So let's and we're going to input this equation into Desmos, and we're going to input x equals 0 into Desmos, which will give us a vertical line. So we're going to share. And we have y equals there. Now it's sharing 6/5. Oops. And then x minus 5. And then -3. Okay, so, and I already have the x equals 0, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And we sit there and go, hey, it crosses way down here at 0 and -9. So my y-intercept is at 0 and -9. So this is my x, this is my y, and we have our y-intercept at 0, -9. And if I wanted to write this in y equals mx plus b format, I could go y equals 6/5 x minus 9. Because all I did was put the slope in, and then I plugged in my y-intercept, which is also my b. Now we have, we can skip this problem. This was on the front. We've already done it. So we can skip this one. So we're going to move on. Now we're getting into a little more challenging problems. Okay, again, we're going to solve for y, but we're no longer in a pretty format. So I have 2x minus 4y equals 8. Well, I need to get the y by itself. So I'm solving for y. So I need to move this 2x. Well, this is a plus 2x. I'm going to have to do opposite operations, which is minus 2x. This goes away. And now I have negative 4y equals negative 2x. And that's a positive 8. Because I can't combine those together. They're not like terms. Then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4 because I want the y by itself. Watch out for signs changes. So this becomes a positive y. This becomes a positive 1/2 x minus 2. All right, so we have y equals 1/2 x minus 2. Well, guess what? At this point, we're in y equals mx plus b format. So at this point, you shouldn't even have to go to Desmos, although we can. We can go, well, my slope is 1/2, and my y-intercept is 0, negative 2. So this is my x, this is my y. That's also my little b. So let's go check this out and make sure this all worked out the way we wanted it to. So we ended up with 1/2 x minus 2. And we already had x equals 0. And look, it crossed at 0, negative 2, just like we said it would. Okay, so that's our y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis. So moving on, back to our last problem. We have 6x plus 2y equals negative 10. So 6x plus 2y equals negative 10. Again, the goal is to get the y by itself. So I'm going to move this 6x. I'm going to do it by doing opposite operations. And so instead of a plus 6x, this has to be a minus 6x. So this becomes 2y equals negative 6x minus 10 because those won't combine because they're not like terms. This is a positive 2, so I need to divide by positive 2. And I get y equals negative 3x minus 5. Once again, we're in y equals mx plus b format. So that tells me my slope is negative 3. As a fraction, it'd be negative 3 over 1, but negative 3. And my y-intercept is going to be 0, negative 5, where this is my x, this is my y, and please remember that's also my little b. So let's drop over to Desmos and conclude this lesson up real quickly here. So we go to check that, and we have y equals negative 3x minus 5. And let's see if we cross at 0, negative 5. And sure enough, we have 0, negative 5, and that's where we cross. Okay, sure hope this helped. Look forward to seeing you on the next one, and thank you for watching.